Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Dare to be Different. This one is actually going to be about sound.
Woohoo!
This one we actually want to just talk about some out-of-the-box ideas for sound in your wedding films. So this is things like recording bands, recording maybe musicians at cocktail hour or during the ceremony, or maybe even like dialogue snippets that you can maybe try and grab throughout the day, or what you could use in your edit.
Yeah, things that are a bit more out of the ordinary. We didn't want to make an episode about how to record ceremony and speeches. I think everyone either knows that or, we can do some YouTube tutorials on that if that's something that you'd really like us to do. Yeah. Please DM us, Jack&Shannon_ on Instagram. Let us know what you want. Don't forget the underscore. Instagram didn't allow us to have Jack and Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, even I wouldn't listen to a podcast that tells me how to record ceremony and speeches.
Yeah, so, but if you are a beginner and you would like any of those kinds of tips and tricks, let us know and we can put them on YouTube.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
This podcast is going to be more about perhaps things you haven't thought about, because at the last few summits and sort of videography gatherings that we've been to over the last 6 months, we have heard people comment that they don't really know where to start when it comes to recording anything else outside of the ceremony and the speeches. And people are struggling to come up with ideas as to how to use sound in their films outside of using some vows or a nice thing that the groom said during the speeches. So we thought we'd hit you up with a few ideas that maybe you can go away with at your next wedding. Obviously, these ideas can't be done at every single wedding.
Yep.
But they're just things that you can be thinking about to spice things up a little bit.
I think the best place to start would be recording musicians at the wedding day. It's not something that you may instinctually think of or even think that is even possible. But it's something that has quite radically changed our wedding films, especially when it comes to feature films and I guess documentary films that couples have asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that in the terms of like when we record the band and we want a cinematic storytelling kind of film, it's not really sat well as the music from the day hasn't been quite right, so it's just not fit. So if you're a documentary filmmaker, if you're kind of I want to hear everything from the day kind of filmmaker, then I think this is your absolutely go-to outside of ceremony and speeches. And it doesn't take much to record the band. If anything, it's the same as recording speeches. All you're doing is taking a feed, but all you're doing is taking a feed from the sound engineer. And all I do is reach out to the band itself beforehand and just go, hi guys, I'm filming so-and-so's wedding on this date. I love to incorporate music from the day. The couple have asked that they'd love to hear the band that they've hired. Would it be possible to record your set on the day? And they'll just go, yeah, that sounds good to us. We'll put you in touch with our sound engineer. Just let him know what you need and we'll see you on the day. And that's it. And all it ever is an XLR cable or a 1/4 inch cable that you use for ceremony and speeches from his board into your recorder. That's it. Nice and easy. And
how about kind of like bands that maybe don't have like a PA system, such as an acoustic guitar or a singer?
Yeah, of course. You're going to come across them as well, like especially cocktail hour.
Like string quartets.
Yeah, string quartets, acoustic guitars. They might just be sat on a chair with no speakers whatsoever. And if you know us very well, you'll know that I talk about plant mics all the time. And these are the absolute go-to for these. These are just little stereo recorders that I put on the ground, that Shannon puts on the ground, very close by to the musician, and I just let it record. Sometimes you will get like the ambience if the musician is close to the cocktail party. So there will be chatter in the background of the music, but for us, it always adds that little bit of atmosphere and texture to the wedding film. So it's kind of like you get two sounds in one. So if you want to incorporate the music from the cocktail party, or the cocktail hour, I should say, and it's like you've got these like really funky, upbeat guitarist, and you've got people chatting in the background. It's like awesome, job done, really. And they've always been like the best next step outside of ceremony and speeches when it comes to adding that little bit of depth or that little bit of like just music or sound from the day to trigger any emotion that the couple might have, because they take a long time to choose musicians. They want that significance. Kind of, how can I phrase this? Like significant track, significant type of instrument. Maybe, you know, it's like maybe a friend might be playing the guitar, which is what we've come across quite a lot, or their friend might be in the band, and so on and so forth. And it just gives you that extra bit of audio to use on the edit and in your film.
Awesome. And a question that has come up quite a lot. This question is for you, Jack. We've had that question quite a lot of what is a plant mic, in terms of why do you call it a plant mic?
So a plant mic is come from production sound. So it's the idea that it is planted on the ground on a like a magic arm, or you know, those little grabby things that can,
like gorilla tripods.
yeah, gorilla tripods, Gobi tripods, that kind of thing. So it's like you plant it somewhere. So it's just become synonymous with putting a mic somewhere that isn't on a stand or something like that, if that makes sense. So then the recorder itself is anything that can record sound. So if it's anything from like a TX650 to a little Tascam stereo recorder like the DR05X, or I know Zoom's got like the H1N, that kind of thing. And then anything, you know, even if you want to put a couple of mics down there, that's still a plant mic. It's something that you leave and forget. That's a plant mic. So it's there to capture a sound, but you're not in control of it.
And I also want to add as well, when you're recording a band and you've plugged into their PA system, as Jack's just been explaining, we also use the plant mics to record that band as well. So we don't just use one source of recording, because obviously that recording that you then take directly from the band is going to be very, very clean. And it's often not the best track to use in the film because it sounds too clean.
Yeah, so there are a couple of issues that I didn't want to dive too deep, as this might be maybe a beginner level thought, but Shannon is right, and as she's brought it up, the feed from the band is mixed so the band members can hear what they want to hear. So if that makes sense, so if you've got a drum kit, a guitarist, a bass player, and two singers, the drums aren't usually in that mix because the drums are loud enough for the room. The guitarist might be quite loud, the bass player might be quite low, and the singers usually want to hear themselves or each other. So the singing might be quite present. So then what I do is I put my plant mics at the back of the room. So then you have two audio sources, one that's clean of the band with all the elements that they want to hear, and then the plant mic at the back, which actually captures, it's called a room mic. So instead of a plant mic, a room mic, which will capture the drums, but will also capture the essentially room itself. So like the echo or the reverb of the room, the sound bouncing off the walls and going back into the recorder. So then when you actually mix those two together, it sounds quite close to what you might hear on the day, or if anything, it's better. And you have that control then. When you want to just kind of blend them together, you've got the volume control of what you want to hear. So that's what I like to do. So two sources, it's the clean feed from the sound engineer, and then a room mic / plant mic at the back of the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Amazing. So outside of music then, what else can we be thinking about on a wedding day? It's like more sound, because again, we heard questions from people asking, you know, outside of the ceremony and the speeches, how can we get more emotional dialogue? Now, this is obviously something that I think us Brits have become a little bit famous now, or infamous, for having weddings and having couples that aren't as emotional as you know, Americans and Australians. In terms of, the Americans are known for being very emotional and crying on camera and wanting to be a lot more sensitive. And the Brits just like to get the
Party
ceremony
on.
done and
Yeah.
party on. And there's nothing wrong with either. But when it comes to creating a wedding film, I know that a lot of us really do want that emotional connection. We want story. And if a couple
Yeah.
stands up at the ceremony and goes, I, Jack, take these Shannon to be my wife. Awesome, let's go and have a pint. Then you suddenly don't have a story to tell. So,
And that's a joke, but that's probably actually not far off from a wedding we did last year.
and this is the thing, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is a struggle in the edit to form any kind of narrative. So,
yeah. Emotional narrative. Anyway.
emotional narrative, yeah. So, what advice would you give to videographers about maybe trying to find a bit more story and a bit more dialogue to play with?
Yeah, of course. So I guess this is a discussion for a pre-wedding call or even like a consultation call, depending on what you guys want to call it. So this is a great opportunity to ask, are you writing any letters in the morning that you could read out to each other? They could even read their vows if they have vows. So it's like you have that clean feed in the morning. So then just in case the ceremony is a little bit different, you have that solid, clean audio of them saying their vows. Poems, letter readings, interviews. I know interviews are a huge thing in the, right now, especially with like kind of this reality TV approach coming in. And I think that's one that I feel resonates with family members quite well. Because way back when, you had Uncle Bob go around with the handy cam, and because he was a family member, he could go around to family members and go, have you got a quick message for Jack and Shannon? Any like advice for going forward in marriage, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, they'll say something to camera. Well, people want to do that now. We even get that at our weddings because that's what they did 10
Back in the
years ago,
day.
15 years ago,
Yeah.
20 years ago. People want to give them advice. And unfortunately, these day and age, they'll say, oh, can we just say something to camera? And it's in the middle of the party on the dance floor. And it's like, you can. I can't hear shit. But yeah, go for it.
Or you always have like old ladies come up and go, hiya, love. And just smile at the camera and you're like, thank you for
Thanks.
that. Bye.
Thanks, Nina.
But yeah, I think, obviously this is couple to couple. There are plenty of couples that
Yeah.
are like, absolutely not, don't want any dialogue, don't want to even hear my voice.
Yeah, which we've had.
Which we've had, and it's fine. I think every couple is different. You need to approach every single wedding completely differently.
Yeah. But these are just suggestions
These are suggestions.
to put forward on the call. And I think
Yeah.
the consultation call, pre-wedding call, is the best place to do it. Like, don't throw it at them on the day because they won't be prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
They won't have written anything if it's specifically for like a morning letter reading.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely get this in as soon as the couple will speak to you on a video call or a phone call.
Yep.
Or just go, like, how do you guys feel about maybe writing letters to each other and reading them out so then I could use it in the film? And I feel like, you've got to get that, can we do it for the films? Like, you've hired me for a reason. It's, I want to make sure I can get your story across the best I can. So is there anything that you can give me outside of speeches or outside of your ceremony, especially if you're aware that the ceremony is going to be quite short?
Yeah, definitely. Like if you're on the call and they say, oh, it's a civil ceremony, it's only going to be about 10 minutes. That's when you really want to be diving deep with your couple to see if you can grab more,
Yeah.
especially as well if they then add on top of that, oh, are you doing speeches? Oh, yeah, but just the traditional ones. My dad's going to say maybe like something for 5 minutes and then you have to say something and thank everyone. If they're kind of giving you that kind of vibe that you are going to be left with like zero dialogue at the end of the wedding, just put the feelers out.
Yeah.
Because I would say when it comes to letter readings in the morning, although we sometimes call it giving each other cards, because I think in like Americans see it more
Yeah.
as like a letter giving, whereas I think in Britain we do exchange cards with the bride and groom in the morning, and oftentimes they will put a little message in anyway. So it might be nice just to say that, are you, that's how we approach it. We say, are you exchanging gifts in the morning or cards? And they go, oh, well, we're going to be giving each other a card. Yes. Okay, great. Would you like to perhaps have that recorded out loud. We could take you into a private room, and before you exchange the card to her, you read it out. So it's your card in your voice. I think a lot of couples will say, oh no, I'm going to be too nervous. But then you'll get the odd couple that go, oh, that sounds really nice.
I'd say you're planting that seed in their head because you go, oh, I didn't even know I could do that.
Exactly.
You know, so bring that to the table. It's like, because if you're scared to ask that they're going to say no, there's a very high chance that they don't even know they can do it.
Yeah.
So they might go, oh, wow, yeah, that sounds a great idea. And it's usually the groom go, yeah, I could probably write something. Or they'll go, but I'll say what I need in my speech and be like, maybe it's something that you could do about your life, or maybe just something how you might be feeling about the wedding day itself outside of your speech. Like, it doesn't have to be long, but it just gives me that little bit of dialogue I can use in your film that can just tell your story a little bit better. How does that sound?
Yeah.
But like, oh yeah, I can do that. And when you're in groom prep, it's like, just need literally 2 minutes. If you've written 45 seconds of dialogue, 20 seconds of that is getting the mic on and go, okay, whatever his name is, go for it. You don't even need to film them. Just go, I'm going to step out the room, give that a read, nice and slow. Like, say it like you're going to be speaking it to your bride or your partner, and I'll come back in 1 minute, 30 seconds. Like, okay, great. See you in a minute.
Leave them.
Leave
Leave them
them.
to it. Don't be in the room with them. Like, sometimes they're fine, but like, we always tend to say, right, we're just going to leave you to it, because, and we always say as well, do it 3 times, because they will stumble and they'll do it weird on the first one, and they'll read it like they're reading a teleprompter at school or something. And then,
Shannon, I love you. I'm so excited for today. I cannot wait to see you on the aisle. Let's party. Jack. Be like, and you can hear him through the door, and like, poke my head in and be like, that was great, but maybe just say it a little bit slower.
say it like you mean it. And also,
don't actually say that.
Also, I would say take advantage of things that might come up on the call as well. So, for example, if your couple might be very romantic, but their family aren't. Sometimes that might be a cultural thing, especially in Britain, where maybe their parents are a lot more conservative, but they're a little bit more liberal. And so they don't want to exchange personal vows during the ceremony because it's a bit icky, or it's going to be a bit embarrassing, or, oh, my dad doesn't want to hear me talk like that. So that's when you can provide them opportunity in the morning to exchange letters, so they can do their personal vows the way they want to, and it can be private on their wedding film. We've actually done films in the past where we've done 2 versions. One version where it's just the video, and one version where they've had their personal letter readings in the morning, because they didn't want their family to hear their personal letters to each other. So
it ends up being their story, and it's like, okay, our parents don't really know this, I guess. So it's like, that's personal to us, but when we don't want family to know, or we just don't want family to hear it.
Yeah, I think, it's just, each couple's very different and want different things from the day, and you can provide them with the opportunity to make their film super unique and personal to them. So always take that opportunity. I would say the only other thing I've been thinking about that people could be thinking of is not dialogue, not music. So what else? What other things can they be talking about or thinking about audio-wise that they can bring to their film?
So for me, it's always been the sound of the location/venue. When we started out, I used to take my recorder before we started the wedding day. We turn up maybe half an hour early, just to kind of just be there, be ready. But in that time that Shannon might be at the car and just getting the kit ready, I would go out into the gardens, or maybe like a local stream or the local forest, which is right next to the venue, and I'd record the sound of those spaces. And so then when I came to the edit, I had these actual sounds from the venue, and I always found that important, because I think people will hear the noise of their venue when they arrive, but they won't actually realize what they're hearing. So it's like, if there's, certain kinds of birds in those trees, if there's long grass that might be blowing on a windy day, and it might just create the atmosphere of the venue and their wedding morning, wedding day, whatever. And it's so subconscious that they don't realize, but it's like they're just feeling good on the day. But then when it actually comes to the edit and you start adding these sounds in, and it triggers a memory in their head and going, oh yeah, you know, I remember those birds in the morning, or I loved when we turned up and all I could hear was the grass blowing, and it was just like, oh, just I loved it. I'm so glad they've got that in the film, and it's like it's an attention to detail matter that kind of sets you apart from other videographers. So if you can, it's just these stereo recorders I talked about, these plant mics. It's the same piece of kit. All I would do would go around with these on a little Gobi tripod, the little bendable arm things, and I just hold it in that space, whatever space you want to record that doesn't have human noises. So no talking, no vehicles if you can, and just record like a minute, 1 minute in each space. That's all you need, because in the edit, in reality, you're going to use probably 30 seconds. So if you could just have that minute, you get those little heads and tails of just in case you might need it for longer. Because what you can actually do is obviously when you've got like cocktail and stuff, or if you've got an outdoor event, they can go in that scene as well. So if you can turn up at like half an hour early to your wedding day, I know people might be precious about their time, but it's definitely recommended that you just turn up about half an hour early, get your stereo recorder out, and just go and find these little pockets of sound across their venue.
And I would say that that is particularly important for destination couples, and that includes couples who are coming from outside of the country as well. So if you're in the UK, if you have any Americans that are coming over to have a London wedding or a Cotswolds wedding, this is particularly important because for them, you have to treat this as a destination wedding. And if you went to, for example, the south of Spain, and then you just made a bog standard wedding video with just vows and some music, and you didn't add any of those textural elements that you'd expect from Spain, it won't feel like a Spain wedding film. At least that is for us. I mean, we're obviously biased because we're big on the sound.
No, but it's true. And if I just jump in, it's what I don't know if this is an actual term, but it's something I call sound association. It's the sounds that you associate or expect from the locations that you visit. So it's like when you go to Spain, you might hear certain kinds of birds, like maybe the grass. Again, I know where we went south of Spain, it was mountainous. It was the mountains of like around Benidorm and Alicante. So it was very windy, loads of grass, loads of trees, loads of birds, like loads of animal life. But then there were these little villages, and when you imagine Spanish villages, you imagine like these little quiet voices bouncing through the stone walls and so on and so forth. And it's that kind of sound association. So it's like, think London, a nice easy one. Traffic, horns, loads of people, cafes, loads of people walking in the streets, that kind of thing. Red buses, like the passerbys that goes, vroom, across your screen and all that stuff. It's the sound associations. If you can get that from your location, amazing. It's like if you don't feel like your visuals are kind of, I don't know, at a kind of variety that can sell the location, the sound will sell it for you.
Yeah. And that can happen. Like, you can go all the way to a destination and have, maybe a plain venue that doesn't, you might go all the way to Italy. Yeah. You can go all the way to Italy and get a venue that doesn't scream Italy. And then you're suddenly sat there going, how am I supposed to make this feel like Italy when it doesn't feel like an Italy venue? And that's where sound can come in. And as well, B-roll and things like that. But from a sound perspective, that's really clever. So obviously we can talk a lot more on all those kinds of things, which we'll do in a different episode. But so as a wrap up, 3 things to be thinking about, which is 1, thinking about adding music to your film.
The live musicians music on the day, the live bands, string quartets, all of that add that extra bit of depth and the emotional trigger for your couple. So definitely try and add that into your films.
Number 2 is just to add additional dialogue.
Yep.
So letter readings and just trying to, I guess, create more moments within the wedding day for you to be able to tell their story. And then number 3, atmosphere,
location specific sounds that can associate your footage with where you are. So sound association. Think about the noises that that location might produce,
Yeah.
and go out and go and get them. Go and record them.
So I hope that episode has given you a little bit more to think about. Some little things that you can do to test yourself and challenge yourself this year, and just elevate your wedding film and have a little bit more fun on the day.
All right, well, as always, reach out if you have any questions, any queries. We're here to answer you guys. You know, this is a little community that we're building, so we want to help you. We're here for you, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, and remember, give us a follow, Jack and Shannon _, or you can go and watch all of our films at Forever Curious Films.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Bye.